It is 252 million years ago, and something is wrong in South Africa. The apex predators that ruled this land for millions of years, the Rubidgeines, the great armored gorgonopsids of the Karoo Basin, are gone. Not dying, not struggling, gone. Vanished from the fossil record well before the main extinction even begins, like candles blown out ahead of the storm. The throne is empty. And then, from 7,000 miles away, something comes to claim it. It has been walking for a long time, across the full width of Pangaea, the single supercontinent, one unbroken landmass stretching from pole to pole. It has crossed desert and floodplain and ancient river system to arrive here. It is not running from anything. It is following the oldest signal in the predator's nervous system. There is prey here, and nothing to stop me. Its name is Via, and it is the most dangerous animal the Permian ever produced. What you're looking at. Forget everything you think a prehistoric predator looks like. This is not a dinosaur, it is not a lizard, it is not a reptile in any meaningful modern sense. Via was a gorgonopsian, one of the first saber-toothed predators on the planet, and while it looked vaguely reptilian, it was part of the group that includes modern mammals. It was, in the most literal sense, our family, a distant relative, a prototype. At over 3 meters long and 300 kilograms, it rivals any big cat alive today. It ran not with a splayed, sideways crawl of a lizard, but with a semi-erect gait, legs beginning to tuck beneath the body, swinging forward and back like a pendulum. It was built for pursuit, for closing distance, for not letting things escape. Its skull was narrow and long, about 60 centimeters, and inside that jaw were saber-like canine teeth up to 15 centimeters long. To put that in context, that tooth, root to tip, is longer than your hand, and it was not decorative. Gorgonopsians like Via probably used their canines for slashing, much more similar to saber-toothed cats, requiring an extraordinarily wide gape, possibly in excess of 90 degrees without having to unhinge the jaw. It opened its mouth wider than a right angle. It stabbed, it slashed, it delivered a wound designed not just to kill, but to make escape impossible. This was the first saber-tooth in the history of life on Earth. Via invented it. The famous Similodon, the Ice Age saber-toothed cat that everyone pictures, came 250 million years later and borrowed the same design from the same evolutionary playbook. The hunt. For hunting large prey, gorgonopsians likely used a bite-and-retreat tactic, ambushing and taking a debilitating bite out of the target, then following it at a safe distance before its injuries exhausted it, at which point they would grapple the animal and deliver a killing bite. This is patient hunting, intelligent hunting, not the brute force charge of a purely instinct-driven predator, but a calculated sequence: strike, withdraw, track, wait, finish. A strategy that requires the predator to read the prey's deterioration and time the final approach correctly. Its primary prey in the Karoo were the Dicynodons, massive, beaked, hippopotamus-sized herbivores that moved in herds across the Permian floodplains. They were not easy targets. They were enormous, they were armored with thick, leathery hide, but they were also slow, and they bled. And Via was built specifically for animals that bled. Once it smelled blood from its prey, it would relentlessly track and pursue at all costs. The sense of smell was acute, the patience was absolute. In the late Permian ecosystem, nothing outran it, nothing outendured it, and nothing had the weapons to stop it. The migration. Here is the detail that elevates Via from dangerous animal to something genuinely remarkable. Prior to a 2023 fossil discovery, Via had only ever been found in Russia. But while examining the fossil record of South Africa's Karoo Basin, researchers identified fossils of 2 large predatory animals that matched the Russian species, evidence that Via had migrated 7,000 miles across the supercontinent Pangaea. 7,000 miles, on foot. across the full length of a dying world. All the big top predators in the late Permian in South Africa went extinct well before the end Permian mass extinction. The vacancy in the apex predator niche was occupied for a brief period by a nostran via. Think about what that means. The local rulers died. The ecosystem sat open, a food chain without a top, and an Nostran via, sensing the shift from thousands of miles away, walked the length of a supercontinent and installed itself at the summit. It did not migrate out of desperation. It migrated because it could. Because nothing along the route could stop it. Because the world, in its final convulsions, still belonged to this animal. But the world was convulsing for a reason. The Siberian traps were already bleeding lava into the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide was accumulating. Temperatures were climbing. The oceans were beginning to suffocate. The Great Dying was not a single moment. It was a slow, compounding catastrophe playing out over hundreds of thousands of years. And in Nostran via, despite everything, despite the migration, despite claiming the empty throne of South Africa, was not going to survive it. The arrival of a Nostran via from 7,000 miles away and its subsequent extinction indicates that these top predators were canaries in the coal mine for the larger extinction event to come. The apex predators always go first. They need the most food. They depend on the most complex food chains. When the base of the ecosystem collapses, the top falls fastest. Nostran via was the last king of the Permian. It crossed a continent to claim a throne that was already crumbling. It ruled, briefly, over a dying world. And then the Siberian traps finished what they had started, and the greatest predator the Permian had ever built, the animal that invented the saber-tooth, that walked 7,000 miles for a kill, that held the apex position until the very last moment, was gone. Every gorgonopsian, every species, every lineage. Erased. The throne didn't just change hands, it ceased to exist. And in the silence that followed, small, hungry, unremarkable creatures crept out of the rubble, and the long road to the dinosaurs began.